Welcome to Being the Space podcast. We are here today with Dr. Ronnika Stewart, doctorally prepared family nurse practitioner, founder of Adaptive Wellness and Recovery in Tampa, Florida, and also founder of the Concierge Nurse Network, where she is not only providing the services, but teaching you nurses how to run your own businesses, doing IV hydration, doing post-operative concierge nursing services. I'm very excited and very grateful that she was able to join us. So everybody, let's give a listen. Hey, everybody, welcome to Being the Space podcast, where we talk about pivoting in life, whether you're a nurse, whether you're changing careers, you're changing something about your life. This is a podcast for you, so please tune in. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are on any other platform, please make sure you follow and like this, share the podcast, comment if you're on a platform that allows you to comment. We like to hear feedback about our podcast. So today on Being the Space, I'm really excited. Somebody that I've been wanting to interview for quite a while, who I had on my mind as a top person to interview a year ago when I birthed this podcast. And so we're going to talk today to Dr. Ronnika Stewart. She's a doctoral prepared family nurse practitioner, among many things. Adaptive Wellness is one of her businesses. She's also got this amazing suite of courses that she offers to help people in the nursing field pivot to facilitate you getting the skills to make a really radical change in your career if you want to leave the bedside and are really ready to take that leap to be an entrepreneur. And so the Concierge Nurse Network is what we're going to talk a little bit today. And Ronika's going to, just share with us, a little bit about herself, how she got started, and I'll let you do your own introduction because I'm sure I missed 5,000 things here. You're a Renaissance woman and always like, having a great attitude along with it. So I really, everybody appreciates that. Welcome, Dr. Stewart.
Well, thank you so much, Nurse Adrian, for having me. I'm super excited. I am honored, flattered that I was one of the top, that you wanted to interview. So thank you. So I am Dr. Stewart, and I am a family nurse practitioner based in Tampa, Florida. I have been a nurse since 2003. So as we could imagine, I've seen a lot of things change, but at the same time, a lot of things stay the same, unfortunately, which is what brought about the Concierge Nurse Network. But before we get into all that, yes, I am originally from Tennessee. I grew up in a city called Clarksville. My RN years were spent in Nashville, Tennessee, which is now the IT city. But I learned so much, and it really, there were so many challenges, but also so much opportunity for me. And I became a family nurse practitioner in 2014. Around 2016, moved to Tampa, and just through those moves and everything else that comes with being a nurse, realized a lot of, unfortunate things about the nursing profession. So I am the first entrepreneur in my family, and started with Adaptive Wellness, which is the clinical side of my business, and the Concierge Nurse Network, which is the nurse connection and mentorship side of what I do. My Adaptive Wellness business or clinic has weight loss, wellness services, but also concierge care, private nursing care for post-op clients, as well as IV therapy. So yeah, some days I come to the realization that I actually run about 3 to 5 businesses,
At least, I couldn't even count. I thought, let me see if I can do an inventory here of what you're doing in your own in the adaptive wellness business, and then all these boot camps you're producing, you're writing. For folks who have never written a course, it takes a while, and then to produce it, market it, do the marketing, pull it off, recruit people, right, to get people to show up,
yes,
and be interested and excited about taking these courses, making that change, and then nurturing them along, which I'm sure you do. And yeah, so do you sleep 1 hour a day or 2 hours? That's what I want. When does the sleep happen?
Yes, because I'm also a wife and mom of 5. So I honestly, one of the first things that you will realize in anything is the right partner can make or break you. And luckily, I have a very supportive family, a very understanding family, and they also understand that despite all that I do, I still need about 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night, and I'm very adamant about that, by the way.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I do sleep, and I
I'm
could not.
impressed. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm lucky if I get about 3 to 4 during menopause now. So it's, I just
Hey,
am,
there's fixes for that, by the way.
I need, we got to talk. We got to talk because I'm definitely over it. It's been a few years now. And I'm like, okay, this is apparently never going to end and it's just going to go on forever. And
Yes.
I'm going to turn 60 and still be going through this. That's great.
Right.
So you decided at some point, right? 2000, 12, whatever it was, a few years into being a nurse, you thought, oh, I'm going to do this nurse practitioner route. You went the route of doing the doctoral prepared. Was that for a specific reason versus a master's prepared? Just kind of looking back a little bit.
I like that question because a lot of nurses are kind of stuck in that, should I do a doctorate degree? It's just another continuation of how we feel not valued and not respected as healthcare professionals and our contributions to healthcare. And so what I realized initially, I'll be honest and transparent because that's what I love to be. I thought the doctorate would bring something magical. It would help my confidence. It would get me more respect, so to say. Maybe I needed that in order to grow, evolve, and expand in my nursing career. Of course, later on, I determined I absolutely did not. I did not need it, but now I treasure and value it for, again, the experience and also not because anything, the respect came with it, but mainly not even the title. A lot of people know I don't always use doctor. I'm very informal sometimes, and I'm like, hey, I'm Ronnika. But honestly, the personal, when I look back, it was the personal achievement, the personal satisfaction, and my personal ambition of I want to be above average and I never want to settle. My dad told me years ago, never settle. At the time, he was talking about relationships or like a boyfriend, but in life, I never want to settle. So if that is a personal goal for someone as a nurse for their own, personal reasons, go for it. Like, who cares what society says? Because yes, I learned so much as far as leadership and how to evaluate, when we go to school, like a study and how to evaluate research. So those things, writing, enhancing my writing skills. So there's so many things that came from the doctorate that, as you just mentioned, Nurse Adrienne, I use writing courses, writing curriculum. That, the doctorate didn't earn me the job that I wanted. It didn't earn me the respect that I thought I would get or the value that I thought I would get as a nurse, but it earned me so much more beyond that. So that was the reason for the doctorate. It was just always this is what I want to do. I did, in fact, do the master's. The way I did it was bachelor's, master's, and then DNP. So,
awesome.
And now I get a lot of peer pressure to go back for psych, and I'm just like, I am burnt out on school.
Oh yeah, school is a hard thing. I mean, I started my master's in nursing and got halfway through, and I thought, I wasn't feeling it. I just wasn't feeling connected to the curriculum, the online. It was mostly online, a very good school. So I just quit. The rest of my friends continued on, and it didn't make too much of a difference in our pay rate or at my job. It really was irrelevant. It was 1% more, and that was it. We got 2% for the bachelor's, 1% more because we already were very well paid. So I want to preface with that we were very, very high paid nurses in California. And so I switched to MBA and I thought, I really wanted to learn about business. And that was really more what I thought, this is going to help me down the road. I really didn't know how. I didn't have a mind at that point to be an entrepreneur. And, I'm really glad I did. Now I'm looking back and, looking again at that master's in nursing, thinking, well, maybe I'll do it, because it wasn't that it was hard. I mean, I have undergrad degrees and so but that component when you get to the doctoral level of research and learn, really learning how to write, really like these are not just group projects like it can be a master's or bachelor's. Like you have to stand up to the merits of your research, your writing, all of it, all the big things. And so hats off to you. Now, I want to ask you, now that we're talking about this, how do you feel about this use of nurse practitioners using the term doctor, as a salutation, as a preface? We had this big lawsuit in California, a nurse practitioner who ran a clinic, got fined. And the really interesting thing about that case was she was sanctioned by the Board of Registered Nursing, but the actual suit came from the medical board, which doesn't even supervise her license. And the courts upheld that. She lost her practice entirely. And I used to live in the town she works in. It's a very small town. It's not, you're kind of an island in the middle of California. There's not a lot of other places to go. So now it's been about a year or so. Now there's a lawsuit suing the state or bringing suit against certain parties to say, no, we get to use this term doctor because basically what, if you're for folks who don't know this, like physical therapists, a lot of physical therapists are doctorate level trained. That's kind of the new requirements. So they're allowed to use doctor. It's exclusively for nurse practitioners.
Yes.
So you can doctor in any other part of healthcare and say, I'm Dr. blah, blah, blah. I'm the radiology tech, but I have a doctorate in it.
Yes.
But so what do you think about this? What are your thoughts about this power? I'm going to just say it's a power play.
That's what it is. And I was just thinking of all the things like, now what can I say that I can say on public forum?
Right.
Because my thoughts.
You can cuss on podcasts.
But honestly and truly, now we know that doctor is a degree. It is not a position, so to say. Unfortunately, I guess through history, of course, doctors became, maybe that was one of the first. I would have to, probably research that, but maybe that was one of the first advanced or doctoral degrees. So maybe they kind of felt like they have that, like traditionally. But we know these days a lot of professions have moved towards increasing, requirements and they've moved to the doctoral degree. So doctor is not unique to physicians. Physicians is probably what the terminology we should use these days. And that's what I aim to say. I say physician. And yes, doctor can be a nurse practitioner, a pharmacist, psychologist. There was a time in my life where I didn't realize when I heard doctor that was a psychologist, but that's another good example. Chiropractors, they had to fight this battle too, by the way. They were one of the first professions attacked for, using doctor, and they were chiropractors versus physicians or MDs or DOs. So this has been a traditional, unfortunately, years-long thing. This is something that the medical board has always kind of fought for. So it's definitely not just nurse practitioners, but as our roles have grown and evolved, it has definitely become a turf war, a power play, especially because it's more of a female-dominated profession. I feel like that's one aspect of it. And then also because traditionally, nurses, we just took orders, we did what they say. Going back to the degree versus advanced or not advanced or like a degrees, no matter what degree we get in nursing, most of the time we're still being trained to take orders, and go work for someone, right? So all of this is definitely a power play, and I feel that there is no room for this in healthcare. We need the collaboration. All of us have value as members of the team, and the nurse practitioner role evolving is not by accident. A lot of it is because a lot of physicians are moving away from some of the basic primary preventative care. And of course, we also know some of that's driven by insurance companies and healthcare really being a business. So like I said, there's so many ways to go with that. But I do feel that was very unfair for that nurse. I know that it wasn't her. I don't feel it was her intent to confuse healthcare consumers. And I am very clear, I had a job or a corporate position where we couldn't use doctor, so whatever. But I'm very clear that, I'm Dr. Stewart, nurse practitioner, and that just, why can't that be that? A psychologist, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so, psychologist, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so, pharmacist, so we can all, if we just educate the public, education, and make our role clear of what we're doing. It shouldn't be a problem. But I think even in the setting of that happening, it's still a problem. And that's where this poor nurse was made an example and got caught up in power plays and politics. So I hate it. But yes, I hope that she can, get everything back triple fold and maybe even leave that town, because that is terrible.
Yeah, it's a one horse town on the coast, I got to tell you. And, I think there's some other issues at play with her, with the population she was serving, the services she was offering. So I think it was, we'll see, we'll see what happens. I know that she's, a very empowered woman, and I think it's worth it, because people think California is very liberal, but in fact, it's actually fairly conservative. And the medical board, right, the California Medical Association, right, which is the California arm of the AMA, is extremely powerful. This is why you can't even use complementary and alternative medicine in California. People go to Arizona where it's allowed. So if I were to offer complementary alternative medicine, like I don't know, I'm a Reiki practitioner also, but
nice.
Reiki counts. But if I were to offer some alternative form of treatment, I would actually have to get approval from that patient's provider to do that. It would have to be documented in California.
So that's just a barrier. Like, do we know that these therapies are available? Of course, there's not studies, because big companies aren't going to invest the money into those studies, but at the same time, there are studies. But we know that there's other alternative medicine practices that are very effective and very helpful. But yes.
So a lot of people go to Arizona, they go to Florida. Yes. I think some of those things are still allowed. So
that's one thing I love about Florida. I know there's some things that people are hating about Florida right now, and I get it. But that's one thing I do love, is that we have more openness as far as the alternative medicine, and being able to, and that's the majority of what I do in my clinic, is what would be considered alternatives, the IV therapy, the hormone optimization. There's a lot of things that we do in these types of spaces are going to be helpful or more preventative versus, treating people when they're already very sick and relying on, pharmaceutical medicine. So yeah, that is another power play. So we can probably go.
Oh yeah. So folks who don't know, right, so I'm very much into the history of medicine, which I studied long before I became a nurse. Just the history of women as healers, really. Yes. And indigenous healing, indigenous medicine, whatever it may be called, right? And modern medicine, really the goal was like, we can only get important and be seen as important to the public if we destroy everything else. And if we minimize everything else. And that was primarily women who were healers, women who were, doing practicing their form of medicine and wherever it might have been, whether it's rural Appalachia to, other countries, to, Latin America, Africa, Europe, wherever, it was so much about shutting all of that down and saying, this is voodoo medicine. And, everybody needs to do what we're doing and follow us, which is, again, very patriarchal. It was like, can we all just get along? And that really showed up with midwives, really the vilification of midwives. And here we are coming full circle again.
Yes.
Midwives.
We're glad for that.
Guess what? We're bringing back midwives, doulas, right? Now we have death. There's a lot that is to be said, because again, like you said, in America, at least, we're not seeing these doctors becoming general practitioners. And most people don't know there's actually a limit on the number of doctors who can graduate, who are allowed into medical schools. There's a cap, and there's a cap on how many can graduate. So we are completely creating a dependence on foreign trained doctors when we can have locally trained nurse practitioners who are critical thinkers. Nurses are problem solvers. Somebody asked me, why do you go back to the bedside? I just did my CPR this morning, and the woman teaching was a nurse, retired nurse. And I said, I just missed the puzzle. I missed the puzzle.
Same.
I missed the puzzle of healthcare, not of proving a doctor's wrong or a team of physicians is
Yes.
wrong, but really getting in the puzzle and being part of that team. And there certainly are times when many of us as nurses look at a diagnosis, a treatment, look at the patient and say, this is not adding up. And I had a really great example, a perfect example of that early in my career, which was also a testament to why we need time. We need ratios. We need time to think and reflect about what's going on with this client, what's going on, with the patient, and how are they presenting. And then let me talk to my colleagues who are more senior and, whatever it might be. Meanwhile, you're arguing with the doctor who's like, no, it's exactly what I said it is. It can't possibly be botulism poisoning that only happens sometimes a year in the United States. And it turns out it was the fourth case that year in the United States, and they fly the antidote out immediately. Highway Patrol brings you to your hospital, all that good stuff. But it's a good segue about having time, how do we create, right? We're nurses, many of us work bedside or have worked bedside, or do home health or teach. But most people come out of nursing school, they go into a hospital environment, or some kind of acute care environment, maybe a clinic. And then, you go through a number of experiences and you realize, okay, the money can be made in the hospital environment. The hours are good, whatever it might be. But there's a point where for many of us, it's like, wait, I've actually entered the gulag and I'm actually just breaking boulders with, a sledgehammer. And that's how my body feels at the end of the day. I've been injured for the third time or attacked by a patient, threatened by somebody. How many mental health patients, psych patients are we going to bring in without any support? All of these things, right?
And hit a brick wall.
Yeah. Or I could be sued. I could be, go to jail. All these things, right? So you're offering something that is really a set of amazing alternatives to really take control back and have the time you want to have with clients. So talk to me about, because you started the post-op recovery boot camp was the first program you started after you obviously got adaptive wellness going. You were like, hey, I'm bored. I'm not doing enough with 5 kids. Did you say you have 5 kids, by the way? I just want to point that out because I'm about to fall on the floor. So, and hats off to your partner, it does matter. It does really matter.
Yes.
So you thought, so you're running adaptive wellness, you're trucking along, that's going great, I'm sure. And you think, well, there's something else out there I want to do. Talk to me about how that happened.
So it started with value, right? So I'm doing adaptive wellness. I realized my value. That's how adaptive wellness came to be. I realized that this is going to be hard. This is going to be an uphill climb, but I have value. And we all have value, no matter what in healthcare, no matter what our role is, right? But realizing we have value, and everyone wants to tell me my value as a woman, and as a nurse. It just and one day I realized I have value, and I can actually determine that. I can walk in that. I can operate in that. I can stand tall in that, right? So adaptive wellness was born. From there, I went into the post-op recovery boot camp, where that began because I saw a gap in care. I saw a problem. I saw a missing piece of the puzzle. I saw that ladies or clients, mostly women at the time, but now I'm seeing a mixture, but people were having surgery, cosmetic surgery, and they were looking for us. I always say that. That's one of my taglines, clients are looking for us, right? And nurses, we have so much value. And no, you don't have to have a DNP like me. You don't have to be an RN even, like nurses. All of us, we have so much value. All the way from even CNA, which, all the way through. But we have value, and clients are looking for our experience, our intuition, our critical thinking, our expertise, our skills. They were looking for that, and we're still, even though I feel like we have just been run through the ringer in the media the last few years, we're still very trusted. Okay.
Right.
So with that said, I realized that a lot of unscrupulous people with not the character and not even the skill of us as nurses were out here saying, hey, I can take care of clients after surgery. And I'm like, no, these clients are still medical. They're still having procedures that come with complications. They still need a lot of education. Just because they're going into an outpatient facility and coming home the same day does not make this any less risky, and it does not decrease the need for nursing, solid, good nursing care. So that is how Post-Op Recovery Bootcamp was born. I did not even feel ready. If I had thought too much about Post-Op Recovery Bootcamp, I know imposter syndrome would have kicked in. I would have started questioning my value. I didn't really think about it. I just did it. I just literally went into the Concierge Nurse Network Facebook group. I didn't even write the course yet, by the way, and said, Post-Op Recovery Bootcamp is happening in November. And I just and people were super interested. I couldn't believe it, because if I had really sat and did too much thinking, because I'm a very big overthinker, I would have really been like, well, I've only been in business. At this point, I had started business in 2020. It was the end of 2021. So I was only, like a year and a half into business as a concierge nurse. But as far as my post-op experience, that went all the way back to 2003. So that was where I felt comfortable. I was like, I know post-op, but business was still a little,
You had already been providing the service.
Yes.
And then you thought, wait, there's only one of me.
Yes.
So you either hire more people to do it in a company, and or teach people to do it and expand the pool of people who are learning how to do it.
Yes.
And so do people come from all over the country to do this?
They do. And honestly, I will say, so my furthest has been Hawaii. And so I do California, Hawaii, and then I had a lady from Montana. It's very common. The middle of the country, I'm not getting yet, but I'm trying. And then, of course, the whole eastern side. So, all the way from, Maine, Wisconsin to, of course, Florida, Alabama, and all in between. New York, I get students, but they fly into Tampa to be with me for the weekend, or they attend virtually. I started doing virtual too, because my goal was to reach more nurses to, because not just for post-op, but concierge nursing in general, there's such a need in so many different niches. So we started with post-op, cosmetic. Now it's post-op in general. Senior care is a part of the post-op recovery bootcamp now. We know IV therapy, that's a common concierge niche. And then we also added a postpartum, because as you mentioned, like even with that coming back and women realizing that the birth process, even if it's something that happens every day, is still very unique to each woman. And there's so many gaps and missing pieces to that puzzle in our country, which is unfortunate considering that it's 2023. So
we can do better to humans. These are humans. We are, people and moms and babies and new humans to the earth. And everything needs help. And I think, and that's like amazing, because you doing the postpartum. I mean, I've really learned a lot about birth trauma. One of the very first podcasts I ever did as an interviewee was on the Pulse Check, which is by two OB nurses. And Mandy Irby she is in that space of birth trauma and really educating people. And that's not my wheelhouse, as a a step down nurse. But it's been so much coming up in my space. It's just like, the universe is telling me I need to learn a little more about this, because it's really, that's another niche for the OB nurses and L&D nurses and NICU nurses who may think, I don't have these adult skills or to do post, op or IV therapy and all that. She really doesn't matter. You could do it. But so what is your most popular, if you want to share, if you don't, it's okay. What is your most popular course right now?
It's still post-op. And honestly, I love post-op, as we can tell, but I'm also loving postpartum and wanting to add it to my agency. And it surprises me that postpartum is not the most popular, and of course, I also tell nurses, like, you can start with one niche or even a couple. And
Right.
the goal is to build an entire concierge agency. So you will have these different service lines, post-operative, postpartum, and even senior care under one umbrella. And that doesn't mean you're doing them all, because now you're building, you're building a, not like a home care agency, but it's more, non-traditional in the sense that you're not doing insurance and Medicare and Medicaid and face-to-face, So you can build different tiers of packages, because of course, a lot of people's first objection to concierge nursing care is, oh my gosh, well, that's nice if people can afford it. But, everyone can have this access, which is the goal, access.
Right.
And again, filling in those missing pieces to the puzzle. Everyone can with the proper planning and education. So that's my goal with concierge nursing. Like everyone, when I see Google searches, when I look at Google Analytics and I see people actually search for concierge nurse, I'm like, yes, like people are becoming more aware. So that visibility is important, but it's still, I think people still go with the comfortable post-op or IV. And honestly and truly, I get it, but there's still so much, like, you don't have to do that. Like, go in, because that was my background, right? That is some nurses' background. But like you said, what if your background is OB or labor and delivery or lactation or senior care, or like in your case, being really passionate about advocacy, for example. There's so many ways to go with concierge nursing. You don't have to just go with the popular if it's not, your passion. So yeah, lots of opportunities.
The post-op stuff, I mean, I was very interested in it in California, but I don't like the laws again in California because it favors doctors. It's just, now I left California and now I'm, getting a little more settled here and, really looking at that space of post-op, because I think that is something. Well, I mean, one is nurses. We all do it anyways for our friends.
Yes.
I can't even tell you how many people I have done it for, where it's just turned into a fiasco of what their expectations and belief about their surgery or procedure, usually outpatient, which we all know everything's going outpatient. They're going to be doing open hearts outpatient soon. I mean, it's like, and then all the complications that can happen, blood, et cetera. But just down to, not enough pain pills, not the supplies, the bandages, the, access to the doctor, just all of that. And, I just am shocked that it happens over and over again. People that I help care of.
Me too.
I'll tell them, well, because I when in California, I lived kind of a distance from a lot of my friends. And I would say, look, I'm just going to bring a bag. I'm going to stay the night. No. I just need you for a couple hours. It's fine. I will sleep in my car. I don't even care. Like, whatever. I'll sleep on the couch with your dog. I know it's going to be more.
It's always more. They never truly understand what they're getting into.
Never less. It's never like, oh, I'm, an hour, I'm feeling great. It never is. There's always like, oh, I only had, even despite we ask patients in advance, right? How many pain pills did you get? What is the doctor prescribing for you? Are they going to get, oh, yeah, they're going to give me everything and blah, blah, blah. And I hear this over and over again. Oh, yeah, my doctor, I know they know what they're doing. I just had this conversation with a friend of mine. And I said, if you're comfortable being your own doctor, I said, most people would not be comfortable being their own doctor, just like they shouldn't be their own lawyer. Right.
Yes.
And I still find, even among my friends, that bias, right, of, I don't say against nurses, but like, oh, well, I trust my doctor. And I'm like, oh, that might be the worst decision you ever made. I mean, just because of the nature of being a physician, a provider,
right,
having 5 seconds with your patient, not being able to.
Yes, it's not that they don't have the knowledge, because I tell my post-ops, I say, look, this is their specialty. They do the surgery, they do your lipo, they do your knee replacement, whatever the case may be. But this is my specialty, recovery. Anticipating what you need for recovery, educating you, setting goals for each day, what you can expect each day as you're recovering. Because the doctor, they're going to give you that general discharge instructions, but I'm here to reinforce, to educate, to, like you're randomly constipated, a very common complication. The doctor may say, here's a stool softener, but I can say, hey, let's do some lymphatic sessions to help. Let's do some other therapies. Let's make sure you're walking. Let's be sure that you're eating high water content, things that the doctor just doesn't have time for that part. Like, we're all needed. That's back to, again, we all have that value. So even with that surgeon or that doctor and all their expertise in doing the surgery, there's still another side, the recovery side, that we are the experts, or, the experts in. They're not.
Also with same-day surgery, I mean, I learned this early on. I had a horrific accident when I was in my 20s, and I had to have some screws taken out of my leg, and they were, oh, we're going to do it outpatient. Well, it did occur to me, okay, that means they're going to close, and there's going to be some urgency to get me out the door, right?
Yes.
And that's another component when you do a same-day outpatient surgery is, that's more or less a 9 to 5, maybe into the evening situation. But one, not everybody's on that timeline in their body when they come out, or
Exactly.
and there's things that happen that are postponement. So maybe they get you in at 3 o'clock instead of 9 in the morning. And now everybody's like, hey, it's 5:30, you got to go.
That's our clients. So many get out after 5.
Right.
So many.
Yeah.
So you need that, having that coverage and having the nurse to oversee you. Like, people think, oh, nothing happened. I didn't really have to have the nurse. I know I've had patients that have never said that to us. They're always like, you know what? I'm so glad. Even if everything went perfect, they're still so glad to have the eyes, the ears, the ability to relax. That peace of mind is super priceless and valuable.
It is, and because once you're there and you're after surgery, and it could be, it could even be a procedure. It could be colonoscopy. It could be, people also want privacy and confidentiality. I heard that a lot of men
absolutely
those services after maybe their colonoscopy or some of their exams, because they don't want anybody to pick them up or know what's going on,
Right.
And so that's another, pretty simple, kind of recovery. But people don't like, it's important that people feel safe and that they feel confident.
That's it.
I think we rely too much on stoicism sometimes. And maybe more in America, I don't know, but like, it's okay if you need some TLC, give yourself some TLC, spend that money, do a surgery.
You deserve it.
Yeah, spend the $1,200, $1,600, $800, whatever it is, even if it's for 4 hours. Have somebody there with you, because honestly, that could be the difference of saving your life. If you have a blood clot, for example, nobody's going to know that if you're all alone and you're writhing in pain. You're not even going to distinguish the pain of your post-op site, surgical site, versus my leg is throbbing, or my neck is throbbing. So that's also very important. What do you so post-op stuff or any of the, the post-care? So does this include like driving people, picking them up, going to the pharmacy? Like, what kind of things are people providing in that space?
So I always say the great thing about concierge nurses is you're not just trading time for money, right? So even though my packages are broken down hourly, we're providing way more value than just the hourly nurse. So we like to have in, of course, the education, the support, just like you said, the TLC, but also sometimes I incorporate red light therapies, lymphatic drainage sessions, IV therapy, yes, care coordination, reaching out to the doctor's office, taking them to post-op appointments, picking them up from surgery. Yes, setting up their room, making sure everything's clean, setting up their pain medicine schedule, feeding them those first few meals when they, they're ravenously hungry, but they're a little weak to be getting up on their feet, So all of the above. Most of the time, I kind of give examples of our packages, but I tell our clients, like, it's nursing care. It's what you need while we're, during the time we're with you. And there's really, drain care, education on drain. It's everything that they need. So if they have a 4, it's every nurse and whatever they need while we're there. Like, I won't say, well, you only book 4 hours, so we won't show you how to do your drains, Like, it's all of what they need. And then, of course, they can have more time, because sometimes the second day they need transport to the post-op appointment. So in that case, then they would book an additional, I do blocks of 4, so 4, 8, 12, like that. So everything that they need. And then, I had one nurse who was a Reiki practitioner. So she was really good about getting them calm. It was just she ended up having to resign, but she was amazing. Like, you can make it truly unique to that client and unique to your skills. So I have a team of nurses, and we all bring something a little different, of course. So that was something special that she knew how to do to help them in those hours after surgery. So the possibilities are literally limitless.
Yeah, and there's 20% of Americans are going to be solo agers, right? People like myself with no kids, no kids, aging alone, whatever they call us. And that's another arena, right? Is that what is it? 10,000 or 20,000 people turn 65 every day. There's this massive amount of people who are aging alone. I know in my generation, I'm Gen X. A lot of my friends, are solo agers, they're single, they're kind of like, well, what are we going to do? And I think this whole idea of concierge nursing is really important as it intersects with how people are aging. Are they hiring? To me, I think, well, you could be a group of 4 friends and you could hire a concierge nurse to come and do education on certain topics.
Exactly.
Or do some other kind of packages, right? So are you finding that a lot of people that you serve are single, living alone? Is it a mix? Is it one type category or another?
It's a lot. Even with kids, we know, even having kids, they're off, they're living in another state, they have their own family. So many people, they still obviously are going to need help, support. They need that education for, like, let's say fall prevention, as you're aging. But they definitely, their kids want the best for them if they have them, or they just want to be in their home, what they're familiar with. Yes, I see with surgery people that live completely alone, and we are their entire support system for that first, week or two. Every now and then we even feed a dog or two and take dogs walking. So yes, I see.
I got 2 dogs, so that would be, that's added on the list. It's like, look, how many of us in the hospital worked in a hospital and had a patient who was like, oh, my dog's in the car? Or something. I don't know in Florida if that happened, but in California that would happen pretty commonly.
Wow.
And I can think of at least 3 times where we took turns taking care of some patient's dog and didn't tell
what needs to be done, right?
And didn't tell anybody.
This is how we are as nurses. Like, we're definitely givers, and I think that's how we also get lost in realizing how valuable we are, how much value we have, right? So yes, I do see so many clients. One of my first questions on intake when I'm talking to them is like, hey, will you be traveling alone or do you live alone? And so many do, like, they're alone, and like you said, either they are alone, or they don't want anyone to know anyway. So they still value that privacy and confidentiality. So there's so many reasons that people look for, and sometimes they don't know what they're looking for. They're like, well, I really would like I look at Google searches and I'm like, I see terms like concierge nurse, which always makes me happy, but I also will see like private nurse for surgery, or one day I saw private nurse for the wealthy. Like, like, they are actively, ferociously looking for us. So and it's on. And as you said, senior care with the average age, the mean age of the population approaching 65 and older in the next few years. Now is the time to pivot or consider.
Now, I'm sure in Florida, because there's a huge senior population. So where I'm at also, there is a huge number of kind of high-end senior assisted living facilities that are popping up. The hotel industry is deep into it, but now a decade into this. But what I'm also seeing, because I do private patient advocacy, is they're taking over that space of private patient advocacy and that concierge nurse space within that packaging of dispensing your medications. We'll do this. Basically private case management. I'm seeing, it's very interesting. When I get out and I talk to these companies and I offer, hey, I'll come speak to your, residents, or, they always need speakers and information. And a lot of times it's like, no, we offer that in-house. I'm like, really? So I'm just, it's really interesting. So that just tells you that there is a need.
Exactly.
And, get in there. Now, for referrals, like you find for the folks that you're teaching these courses to, are they getting, is a referral system through the providers themselves, like for OB, because I would imagine for like postpartum, that could be a challenge, or I would perceive a challenge in marketing, unless I already had some giant group of, birth age women around me or something. But it's a lot of provider marketing directly and referrals back? Or how's it work?
So a lot of nurses get super frustrated out the gate with this concierge care because they pack up their brochures. Look, I have some sitting right here. They pack them up like this, and they're like walk in, and they're like, "Hey, like I am so and so, and this is what I provide." And the physician's office is like, "Okay, that's nice."
Right.
They don't care.
Right.
They don't care. They're not receptive. They're icy as heck. So I tell nurses, okay, that is one aspect of your marketing plan. You have to have online, offline, and what you have to focus on first and foremost is truly what's in it for them. So one thing, those surgeons, physicians' offices, facilities, they definitely like to have resources. So you have to present yourself as a resource and then build the trust. So one of the ways I did that is by not only taking in my brochures and maybe some coffee or cupcakes, but also, honestly, that's after I watched, what did I watch this weekend? Painkiller, and how those pharmaceutical reps, like, y'all look that up. But anyway, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that approach to my marketing anymore. But
yeah, I remember those days. I mean, I remember those days.
Yeah, like, so I do some of that, right? But what I do is, let's do it this way. I have that client. They had surgery. They have a post-op appointment. I go with them to their post-op appointment. I'm going to go in that way. Now I'm in the back, introduce myself. I'm helping out. I'm also reinforcing the education they're providing during the post-op appointment, taking notes. That's, you have to put in that work of being a resource and building trust. So you can't just drop off brochures and coffee, and you have to put in that time, and that takes time to build. And now think about it. Like, I focused on 10 facilities. There's way more in the area, but I focused on starting with 10, and then every year I focus on expanding that a bit. But like, that's one aspect. Another aspect of how do you get these clients and how do they find you is going to be your online marketing. So your website, your SEO, we all hate that word, but your search engine optimization. It's a long game. So it is. And even now, you can't relax. Like, you have to be planting those seeds, and you have to have the systems in place where, like, say I'm off for a week or two, or I'm sick, or I'm traveling. What is out there to help direct people to me? So my website, my SEO, when they search, post-op nurse or concierge nurse or recovery nurse for Tampa, am I popping up? So you also have to focus on that aspect. Now, don't get me wrong. One of the biggest hacks is being able to build those relationships with the surgeons and get them to say, hey, I know someone for that. A lot of the times, though, I notice with these surgery facilities, they're not really good about giving the information out early. They usually will only give it out if they say, oh my gosh, I need a nurse. And now their surgery is like tomorrow.
Right. You're booked, and they're scrambling to find somebody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's, it's really like, if you can get it in the packet, right? It's like, and the front on the cult.
That's the goal. Like, please put it in the packet.
Yeah.
Like, early.
I did informatics for a year, and I was a physician trainer, and I don't know, so many people, oh my gosh, you're informatics, that's a dream job. And I was like, no, it's not. Not working with doctors. No, they don't want to learn. Once they leave medical school, they actually just stop learning. They don't want to learn pretty much anything else.
It's like technology, right?
It's like, they even just like, we had 350 doctors leave our hospital when we started our EHR. Like, they just went, bye, see ya. Like, we don't want to do this.
We're done.
It was pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, doctors, I would stalk these doctors to train them on the AHR. But, and then also accompany them on, when you talk about pharmaceutical companies and these equipment supply companies, the amount of money they spend, they're no longer allowed to give us freebies in the hospital and pens and all that good stuff.
Right.
I tell you, they spend a dime. They drop a dime on dinners and entertainment on the outside. It's unlimited. I mean, I was at a dinner where the bill was $90,000 in Vegas. And I was, I just happened to be allowed to come along, and I was like, oh, wow. Okay. This is why we're all here in Vegas, I guess. So that the pressure is always on. And I think that, you're not going to be able to compete obviously on that level, but I think you're right about networking and getting in front of the right audience with the SEO, making, and it is, you're never, I mean, I don't know if you have kind of in your mind a percentage of time you spend doing the business and back end, the marketing versus what you're doing on the front end. But it's a lot to wear all those hats, get the right
Yeah.
people in place, a virtual assistants if you need
Yeah.
that, finding a team that you trust, people you
Yeah.
trust. It's just not easy. You think, oh, there's a bajillion people on the planet. There's 5 people I can trust. There's got to be. It's hard.
Gotta be some. Right. No, absolutely. This is where systems, and I'm learning this at 3.5 years in, systems are going to
Mhm.
make or break you. You can start a certain, start small, aim big, but play big, right? But your
Mhm.
system, you have to set that foundation and those solid systems. That's what's going to allow you to grow. You have to trust people. That was hard for me, but that's the only way you're going to grow. And sleep, because remember, I like 8 to 9 hours of sleep.
And
So
sleep. Yeah, don't be cranky without that sleep. Exactly. So in like pivoting and you've kept creating these classes, you started with post-op boot camp, you've gone now to the postpartum, IV therapy. I mean, obviously IV therapy is a huge, big deal.
huge.
And I know there was a supply issue for a while people were dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think what's important also is to be willing to pivot within the pivot, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you just don't know what is going to happen. It's like Airbnb, right? People in
Yes.
Houston, nobody in Houston thought they were going to go belly up on their houses because overnight Houston would outlaw Airbnbs,
Yes.
right? And like immediately, not even like we're gonna like give you the rest of the year. It was like tomorrow they're against the law, right?
Yes.
So it's so. What are your suggestions as far as mindset? You
Mm-hmm.
know, what's the mindset of the entrepreneur, the person who's adapting well, the business person who's really able to pivot?
So mindset is definitely that this is a long game, and always having, even when you start, it's almost like working backwards. Start at the end. Like, what is the end game? Do
Yeah.
you want to sell your business? Do you want to franchise your business? But have that in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and the goal, your revenue goals, and also have in mind that everything's not going to be perfect. Someone said to me, I'm getting ready to start my business, but I want everything to be perfect. And I was like, wait, that's not, no. I was like, this is what I want you to think. I'm going to start my business, and I'm going to have everything, do the best I can with the knowledge that I have. So always educating yourself. Working with a mentor is, I know people think like they're just trying to sell something. It doesn't have to be me, but working with a mentor is so critical. Investing in that mentorship.
Yeah.
And because that is a huge part, the right mentor will help you with, encourage you on the mindset path. And then being prepared. And I said to her, like, start with the best information you have, put everything in place, build a solid foundation. But guess what? You need to be prepared to pivot. Like mindset wise, as entrepreneurs, we have to expect and assume that is going to be a need. So we have to just know. And there's been so many pivots in, like you said, the IV therapy world, supplies, with boards of pharmacy changing their rules. And sometimes those rules are effective tomorrow, kind of like what happened in the Airbnb industry. So yes, you have to be prepared to pivot. And this is where I also say, I know so many people are scared to put all their eggs in one basket. So they'll start like, I did it. I'm like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. But what happened was I was overwhelming myself. My systems were all messed up and I was burning out quickly. And I had to scale it back to like, this is what I'm doing. I'm offering these services and this is what I'm focusing on. So be okay with being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Invest in yourself, mentorship, invest in being around other people with common goals, and invest in your continuing education. Because with all of those components in place, you're going to be more resilient, more adaptive, and more prepared to pivot.
And that's a great answer. And I want to say that a common theme that with everybody I've interviewed about entrepreneurship or just having, really important goals, life-changing goals, is to reverse engineer the goal, right? And it's like I tell people about when I do coaching, and they're, oh, I don't know whether to make this decision, that decision. I say, well, just reverse engineer for your deathbed. What's the life you want to have lived? Like it makes it really easy.
That's a great one.
It just makes it really easy what you're going to put energy into or time. But I think with a business, and I myself, I've made all the mistakes. I literally just rebuilt my business because I don't even know what order I went into. I was like kind of all over the place and being, in a new area state where it was, I tell myself now I'm much more relaxed. I'm doing what I have to do to, get income in, being patient, knowing, okay, it's a long game. It takes a while to build a business. It's not like Instagram. It's not like oh, you're going to just, people are like, oh, how's the business going? Well, it's like a new business. All new businesses do. I'm marketing.
Yes.
And things, making content, learn all the things that we have to figure out and have to be in front of the right people. But at the same time, I had to say, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter what I've spent or what I've done. I just need to start over and reset. And that's what I did this year, which has been really, and I feel so much more focused when you say systems, whatever it might be, it is so important to figure out, okay, I learned how to automate my shorts, for example. I learned Canva, learning how to automate, how to use AI, whether, I don't have a virtual assistant yet, but that will come down the line to do all my editing at some point. But figuring out things of saving time, you've got to be able to sell yourself back time and somehow so that you have the time to sleep, have time for your family, working out, all those things, and time to do the business and get out in front of the right people. But I think that that's such a common, great advice is to reverse engineer and then don't be afraid to change and adapt and have a mentor. Mentoring is really important. And I know people can feel very overwhelmed by that. And some people it's a little gimmicky, but no, it's actually real. I mean, everybody I've interviewed, including you, I consider a mentor on some level, people I'm learning from. And, it's like I played competitive tennis. The coach would always say, don't play with somebody worse than you. Right? Don't play if you want to win and you want to be right. And play with somebody who's going to humble you and be comfortable with that. And I think being an athlete helps, man, it really helps the mindset. I reflect back on being an athlete so often. You learn how to be a team player. You learn how it's not about I'm going to win over you or you're some competition. I see that a little bit in my space of the patient advocacy. And I always tell people, I said, we don't have any competition. There's only 200 of us. We have an issue of marketing. We have an issue of people knowing what it is.
Visibility. Yes.
Visibility is our issue. And that's what we need to get out in front of, the public and the right people, so that's, it's just important to really not get too micro too fast in your lens of the business and what you're doing. And that's where a mentor can help you. And I have an accountability partner that I meet with every Thursday, and that's what we help each other do. It's stay on track. What are we going to achieve this week? But also, hey, how about this? And sometimes we argue, we're very different ideologically in a lot of ways. We're different in age. And I'm like, no, we'll fight with each other a little bit to push each other. That's what you want.
I love it.
Don't find somebody who's always going to agree with you and be like, oh, yeah, you're doing great. Sure.
You can't grow like that.
Yeah. That's not going to challenge you to be the best you can be. You want to be challenged. And that's really important.
Absolutely.
So just as we move along here, as I know you've got to get going, I value your time and I appreciate you being here. Talk about so on your boot camps, you do these boot camps, right? Do you have have you developed the post-op recovery boot camp 2.5, the refresher, the follow-up, the advanced? How does that work for you with the folks you're working with, the nurses you're working with?
Yes. So I typically, what I do is I have the option of mentorship or additional mentorship. So that's a different package that they can add on. But even if they don't add that on, I'm still accessible by email. They also have the option of interacting in a private student Facebook group. So, but what I'm finding is so many people, you can't. So when I started boot camp, I'm not a coach. I'm not a mentor. I still had that little bit in the back of my mind of telling myself what I wasn't, right? We do that to ourselves.
Right.
And what I realized is that I am, and I was. And so I realized with boot camp that I can't just offer a course. I always offered the follow-up, but now what I need is a more structured follow up. So what I'm wanting to do, the plan for 2024 is to revamp boot camp into a mentorship. So basically I'll have 2 cohorts within that year, and they're going to have the full experience. We're going to work on setting up, then we're going to have the actual boot camp, and then we're going to have the other side where I'm still helping them as they get up and running, right? So that is very well needed. So many, you can't, it's so much. First of all, I'm a little bit of an over deliverer, and they get so much information that they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they're like kind of paralyzed. I found a few that they had it and they knew they wanted to do it, but they were like, how do I put this together? So yes, my goal is now to have a more structured follow-up. So the pre and the post, and then the boot camp all in one program. And of course that will change the price point, but they need it. And I want it to be for people. I was getting at first people who were kind of curious, like, oh, I think this might be something I want to do. So they pay because it's a great price point. But what I'm looking for now is like, you're serious? So this is going to be a little bit of a different price point, and it's going to be more comprehensive.
Right. So I think it's needed, and I think in order to scale, right? I mean, part of it is like, how do you scale when you're the one delivering all of it, right?
Yes.
How do you bring on maybe coaches into the system? How do you bring in, it's funny because I do, I realize, I've had different thoughts about this. It's funny you mentioned this about business. Like, I've coached so many people and written so many business plans for people just coming out of my MBA. I was like, oh, hey, I'll write your business plan for you for free because I want to practice, right? I mean, and I'd meet with people and friends that were starting businesses and do their business plans. And, and it's like, again, that it's so important to help people bring clarity, because if they have everything they need, like we all have it, but sometimes you just need somebody who's like, hey, but do it in this order.
Yes.
Where's your strength? Where's your weakness? Right. Yes. What you're really good at, and what do you need help with? And having, that kind of dialogue where then people can, it's not failing. It's like, hey, here's just where I need help and I need support. That's so important. I think that's wonderful. And so you're scaling up. You've got this new program coming out in 2024. Yes. What is Dr. Ronnika see for the 5-year, 10-year plan? I mean, what's the empire going to look like is what I want to know.
Oh my goodness. So for adaptive wellness, it's going to split. Adaptive wellness, the recovery, the concierge nursing side is now trademarked as Recovery RN Concierge. So that's going to be its own completely separate entity from Adaptive Wellness the Clinic, which is where I'm sitting right now. Adaptive Wellness the Clinic will be more of what I do as an NP. So, NP stuff, treating, prescribing, diagnosing, right? So that's still going to be 2 completely separate businesses. And then for the Concierge Nurse Network, the goal is connection, visibility, and resources for nurses who want to enhance their impact and increase their impact beyond the bedside and provide that direct, valuable care to clients. So the goal would definitely be a team of, right now, you're right, I'm the coach mentor, so a team of other coaches and mentors, and also other experts, marketing, legal, but having all those resources in the program is what my 5-year vision is. And then from there, eventually, let's say I'm ready to retire. I am completely just the overseer, and the Concierge Nurse Network is huge, and nurses are coming from even internationally, right? But I don't even have to be involved. It is a complete
and I think
platform.
That's amazing, and I know that you're going to achieve it probably in half the time you think, because you're a manifester. You're like an amazing manifester that manages to be.
You're right. I didn't realize that either until I saw previous. You know what made me realize that? And the power of putting your goals and writing your vision into words is Facebook. You know how it shows you the memories. That's what showed me that. I had no clue.
Right. Because I was actually trying to remember how I actually found you or came across you and connected with you. And I think it was very early on when you were doing the boot camp and starting off, and we'd had some messaging exchanges. And then I just thought, I gotta see where this person goes, because this is like, I saw magic way back then,
Oh my God, thank Thank you.
And so, yeah, so folks, this is, if you go to Beacons AI, it's a concierge nurse network, and make sure you check it out. Go to Dr. Ronika's website, the
Yes.
Beacons account, and concierge nurse network. Look that up on beacons.ai / concierge, the concierge nurse network. If you're listening to this and not able to watch a video. So Dr. Ronnika Stewart, get into one of her classes, book now, and figure out like where you're going to start, because I mean, look, medical tourism is another huge arena, right?
Oh my gosh, yes,
So that's like something that I do also. Like if clients want me to accompany them to Mexico,
yes,
you know, that's what I'll do. So that's a whole other, you know, there's another
yes, accompanying patients on flights. Yes, medical tourism. But yes, find me anywhere, usually either under my name, Ronnika Stewart, on Facebook, Ronnika Stewart Concierge MP. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, where else am I? YouTube. The concierge, the Concierge Nurse Network. And usually if you find me on one of those, you'll also be able to find that link. So, but yeah, like, oh my goodness, the amount of things that I see for concierge nursing in the future is, it's, y'all, the sky is not even the limit here, though. Right. We can go beyond that.
Right, exactly. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Ronnika. I really appreciate you being here, joining us. What a great conversation. If folks are watching this on YouTube, make sure that you go follow her on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on my channel, Be in the Space, comment. Oh, what is your YouTube handle? What is the handles you use on social?
YouTube is still the Concierge Nurse Network too. Yeah, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So okay. Yeah, I'm trying to stay consistent. The only time you use my name is for Facebook, and I do welcome friend requests from nurses, by the way. So my page is pretty public, and I'm big on transparency. So you can actually friend request me on Facebook. I won't have a problem as long as you're a nurse. Of course, if it looks like you're like, but nurses always, I'll add you.
No bots, please. All right, great. Well, thanks so much for being here. And you guys, wherever you're listening, make sure you follow. If it's on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, or on YouTube, please make sure you follow, subscribe, share, and check out.
Follow Nurse Adrienne. She's amazing.
Thanks so much. We're going to end now, and then we'll stay on the chat for just a second. All right. Thanks, everybody. And stay tuned and look forward to the next episode. We're going to be dropping episodes every week. If you are somebody who wants to be on the podcast, just hit me up. You can message me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube, leave a comment. You can DM me on Instagram as well. Everything's Nurse Adrienne at Nurse Adrienne RN. All right. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day.
Love it.